everyone, and welcome back to the Let's Learn series. This week we'll be looking at modifying last week's port scanner script, and we'll be looking at other useful commands. Let's jump in. Let's open up the script we worked on last week and run it in the terminal to see the output. The script we made checked the IP address of nmap.org to see if it had port 22 open. We are going to modify the script to allow us to input the IP address and port number we want to scan. In the script, let's create a startup message that prompts the user to enter an IP address that they want scanned. Our echo command will read, "Open port scanner." Echo, enter the IP address. And we have the terminal read the input as we did before with our Hello Hacker script. We can store it in a variable called address. Then we will want to prompt the user to specify which port they want to check. And we'll store that input in a variable called port. Alright, now we want to use those inputs in the nmap command instead of the given IP address and port number already in the command. Now we change the IP address to the variable address and port from 22 to the variable port. Let's save and run our script to make sure that these changes work. Let's give it the IP address I used before for nmap.org, and also port 22 for SSH. And we get that same information. Great. But what happens if we check for a port that isn't open? Let's try port 1812 to see if they have any radius services running. Notice that the program just stops running. This is likely because the port was not opened, and based on our script, it has nothing to report, so it just ended the process. Let's modify the script to show a message if the port is not open. Above the line that says cat port scan results, we are going to add in a logic statement known as an if statement. This basically allows us to use yes or no questions to determine what the next step in our code is. Our intent will be to check the file port scan results to see if the file contains any data we are looking for. We start the statement by using if grep with the Q switch, which is the quiet switch. What this does is tell the grep command to not print any of the standard output and exit immediately upon finding a match. This helps speeds up the process for us. As we know, if it finds a single match, we are in business. We give it our keyword, which again is open, and use a semicolon to show that this is the end of this argument. We type then to show that if it's found a match, to then process this part of the script, and we'll keep cat port scan results there. Now we have to give it an else scenario. If the file does not contain the keyword open, then we want it to tell us that our scan did not find the desired port open. So after the else, we type echo the scan did not return the open ports. And to show that our if-else statement is complete, we'll add fi to show it's finished. Now let's save and test our script to make sure it works. First, let's test to see if a port we know is open, port 22. Great, it returns us the usual information. Now let's check for a port we don't think is open. Again, we can use the port radius uses, 1812. And it tells us it did not find the open port. This, in my opinion, is better than it returning nothing. Also, we can add to the port prompt a note that the user can use a dash to scan for all open ports, or that they can put in a range of ports. Of course, this takes the scan longer, but it helps the user understand how to use our tool efficiently. There are a ton of modifications you can make to your own scanner that can make it more useful. I recommend playing around with it and finding more ways to improve it. Next, I want to go over a useful tool which is also a text editor. This tool can be a little confusing to navigate at first, but it allows us to edit our scripts and other files within the terminal. To enter this text editor, we type in VI, which stands for Visual Editor, followed by the name of the file we want to edit. Let's look at the port scanner we created. Now we can see the editor does a really cool visual representation of our code, which allows for better readability. We use our cursor, using the arrow keys, to indicate where we want to edit. Let's add a comment in our code that explains what our if-else statement does. Once you have navigated to this section of code, press I to insert the text. We add the comment, and once we are done editing the text, we press Escape to leave insert mode. Now, in order to save the document, we type in a colon followed by WQ. You can also just type in Q to exit without saving. Alternatively, a quicker way to exit and save is to hold down Shift and press C twice. Let's open the file one more time to see that our changes have saved. We see that our new comment is in there. If we wanted to easily delete some of the content, we move our cursor to our desired location. Pressing X will delete a character in front of your cursor. Pressing D twice will delete the entire line your cursor is on. If you want to undo a change like that, you can press U. Now hold down Shift and press Z twice to exit the editor. Those are just a few ways to interact with the VI editor. You might find you have a preference for editing your scripts and other files this way, or you may prefer to use a text editor outside of the terminal. Either way is totally fine. All that matters is you find something that works best with your own workflow. We are going to move away from bash scripting for the time being. Let's look back at logs and see what other commands might come in handy. One command that comes in handy is the tail command. This allows us to look at the last few lines of a file. So, say we want to look at the last few lines of the messages log file. We type in tail messages and it shows us the latest entries in the messages log. By default, this shows us the last 10 lines in the file, but we can change this using a modifier to give us more just by adding the in switch and how many lines we want to see. So tail messages -in 20 will show us the last 20 lines. There is also a head command, which will show you the first few lines of a file. Running this is similar to the tail command, and you can use most of the same switches. Well, that wraps up this week's episode of Let's Learn. It's a tad bit shorter than we're used to, but that's because next week we'll be going over process management, which needs a whole video by itself. If you're getting stuck on some of the topics that we're covering, let me know in the comments, or join us in the Discord, where there's a whole community of people happy to help you with any questions that you have. I hope you've enjoyed this week's episode, and if you did, make sure to subscribe to the channel so that you're notified whenever I have a video coming out or whenever the channel has a video coming out in general. And until next time, I'll see you next episode.